Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of All Things MSP Updates. Now, today we have a vendor in the space who I have worked with previously, not worked for, but worked with previously. And of course, I've worked with our guest today for quite a while in at least one other company that I can remember. And, you know, this is a product that has, for a long time, leveraged AI in a kind of a different way, but I'll let him get into that. Today, I have Dave Poole from CrushBank. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Eric. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic.
So I know that this is kind of CrushBank's first update that we've done with them. So go ahead and give me the elevator pitch for CrushBank.
So CrushBank is a data and AI platform for MSPs to optimize their service desk. So leveraging data, aggregating data, adding automation. So it's an entire platform that integrates within their ITSM or PSA, whether it be ConnectWise, Halo, Autotask, ServiceNow, whatever they use, we integrate it and we add value, optimize their data, aggregate the data, both from an AI and ML perspective. And yes, you're right. We've been doing AI for a while in multiple different ways, from NLP and semantic search for 7 years before getting into generative, and now building on agentic and the entire path.
Well, and a lot of places use the large language models that we hear about all the time, but you guys use a different one.
So we do use open source LLMs. However, we host them. So we actually leverage IBM Watson X on the back end, where we host multiple models. So we do leverage, whether it's the newest version of Llama, whether it's Granite, whether it's Mistral. We use multiple different models, and we also test different models. But yes, we control those LLMs. We tune and train those models for the specific use case. So we eliminate drift. We eliminate hallucinations. We leverage the known data. So again, we build and train on the known data of the MSP. So we build a dedicated data lake, and then we vectorize that data and leverage it against the LLM, which is very different architecture than anybody else is doing.
Right. And you were telling me earlier that actually gets you greater accuracy in the results of your AI usage.
It does. A couple different things. Like, one of our biggest, when we look at our usage across our base, one of the highest usages is our ticket classification model. And to let the cat out of the bag, we actually don't use AI in our ticket classification, so to speak. There is some AI as far as leveraging the data, but the actual model is built on ML. And a lot of people are like, oh, why don't you use AI? Well, if you look at the accuracy of most AI models in ticket classification, they're 40, 50% accurate. I've seen some that are 60%. Our ML model is about 94% accurate. So the accuracy of a custom built ML model on the MSP's data is so much more consistent and so much more accurate. So again, it's being an AI company, but using multiple different types of AI as well as ML where it matters.
So one of the things that I think is interesting about this is that you guys have come up with some very specific use cases and certain audiences that this works best for. So what are some of those use cases first, and then we'll get into like who it works best for?
So use cases are I'd say the biggest one, and the one that launched the company, was a growing MSP that can't fill seats. I'm growing, I've got customers coming in, but I can't get a technician. I've had turnover and I can't find someone to replace that technician. So it's a lot of how do I keep growing without being able to fill the seats? Another is just looking at being competitive and understanding how to be more efficient with the staff they have, and more intelligent on growth. So most of our use cases are built around growth. We do not promote scaling back personnel by leveraging AI. We want to optimize the existing personnel. Another is raising customer satisfaction. So CSAT, obviously, reducing churn for an MSP and increasing CSAT is obviously very important. So how do we help with that? So to get into each one of those, one is optimizing existing staff. How do we, if an average MSP that uses CrushBank can close 20% more tickets with their existing staff, that immediately allows them to meet the demand of their growing customer base. And it changes the metric by which they can onboard new customers. I know when I owned my MSP, and I'm sure you dealt with this, like when I looked at my marketing spend and onboarding new clients, I had to figure out when my next hire, and was it an L1, L2, L3, like what seat did I fill and when did I have to, based off of onboarding new clients? And did I pull back marketing spend? Did I increase marketing spend? Then when would I have a hire? Did I have to go to one of my staffing agencies to make sure I could fill a spot if I had a good campaign? It's a big challenge, right? Because I know that I onboard 2 new clients. I have to hire 1 more person. Well, if I can change that entire metric, it really makes it more intelligent and easier to scale the growth. The customer satisfaction usually comes from escalations. So we typically see a major reduction of escalations in our tickets. So we see L1s, we call them L1.5s, right? So now they're closing all these tickets that they didn't escalate because they now have the information in front of them that's dealt with the either the semantic search or our generative search platform. We have a couple different ones that they can leverage to get the data in front of them. But that gets into a little bit of the use case and how we do it.
Okay, so if you have 10 technicians, let's just say for easy numbers, and you're able to process 20% more tickets, that means you can grow as if you hired 2 more technicians.
That is correct.
Okay, I think that's a win in any book. There's so many numbers out there. I mean, I used to use like 350 per technician as the number of users that we could support. I know with automation that has gone up. What are you seeing in terms of that number? Not necessarily just leveraging CrushBank, but overall because of the market and the automation and AI that we've been able to deploy.
So that's interesting, right? And so those numbers really skew. So we do a lot of different things from, small, mid-size, master platform, enterprise MSPs from 10 employees to a couple thousand. And we have teams in India, Philippines, and all these things from different companies. We have a couple partnerships with a couple of names that you would know of outsource organizations that support some of our MSPs, and we do it jointly. So it's really interesting, and that number can skew depending on that operation. So I know with my MSP, we were a 500 user per technician. We invested a whole lot in automation that we had to spend the money and time to build out. So 1.5 years of dedicated resources building stuff out. And now you don't have to do that with AI, okay? Or I'm not like, okay, plug and play. I need this automation. Boom. And then also depends on other partners. Like we have some of our MSPs that are partnering with specific RPA companies. And so if we can do the ticket classification up front, we see that RPA metric go up 20%. So if you use this RPA company and CrushBank, you're automating this and automating 20% more with this, that number is greater. But not everybody uses that RPA. Not everybody wants to. And some people still. Then there's like our clients that use specific workflows in one of the PSA platforms by leveraging that workflow. And then they've completely changed who they used in triage or who they've used in dispatch. And now by changing that reorging, now you have resources in different places. So again, that number gets greater. So I know I'm not directly answering your question. It is all over the place.
Right.
I remember when the company we worked before, like working with an RMM company, we used to say, okay, this is what we want to get you to. Well, what size organization does that MSP support? If all their clients are 25-person SMBs It's different than, okay, we do co-managed with 500 plus employee organizations, or we do a mix, or we only do work in healthcare, but we are very white glove and we're hands-on. So we do fewer tickets, but we charge like it. That's the beautiful thing about the MSP business. It's a lot of fun because nothing's the same. It's all the same, but it's all different.
Right, exactly. And that is true. I mean, you could apply a model where it's per user, but also you have to factor in per company, because every time you have a different company, it's going to be a little bit different, and that's going to add a layer of complexity onto it. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to try and resolve. And then you have, like you said, white glove, which could be very small numbers, but the nice thing about those is typically they're very profitable.
Yeah, it is, but it does get into the uniqueness of CrushBank, right? So
Yeah.
what is good and bad, right? We do a lot, sometimes too much. Sometimes it can be overwhelming to the MSPs to the point where they don't understand how to properly adopt it. And this is one of the challenges we had in 2024 was making sure that our education for our partners, our engagement process and everything. So we've revamped all of that for 2025, which is very exciting, which is now part of, obviously it is my new role. So we better get it right because I'm responsible if we don't. But understanding and grabbing the metrics from our utilization from successes and failures, because we do have to build custom models per client. We do have to do tuning of the models per client. We also are testing new LLMs for specific outputs. So we understand, okay, this customer supports, legal companies, how their tickets come in is completely different verbiage from this client. How do we adapt and how do we adjust for that? And making sure we're constantly able to handle it per implementation. So there has to be a deployment that aggregates across all clients at some scale, or else it just wouldn't work as a business model. But
Right.
then we also have subsets within that on the customization that allows it to be effective per MSP. However, that requires engagement. That requires personnel from our side. It also requires engagement from our MSP to make sure that we're having that conversation and we can do the tuning and adjustment properly so the system is effective.
So I know that things are kind of all over the place in the MSP world, but it sounds like CrushBank does have more of a defined ideal partner profile, or a partner profile where CrushBank works best, maybe in high growth, or especially because you guys are taking advantage of scale, some of your larger MSPs. So what is that kind of ideal partner for CrushBank?
So a lot of it is defined by the use case. So we do have this is part of what I implemented early on at the beginning of the year, of understanding what exactly does the MSP, what is their use case, and how do we lean in on ROI for their specific use. So we can broaden our ideal based off of what they're trying to achieve, as long as we understand and we're on board together of, okay, we do all of this. None of that matters to you in this segment of the market. As long as you understand we're going to lean in on this, and the ROI doesn't exist if you want to leverage capabilities like beyond, like it just doesn't fit your market. So we do, our ideal customer can expand a little bit based off of subsets. So our typical market starts at a 20-person MSP. And we have a subset that's that 20 to, let's say, 45-person MSP. Then we have a really strong market in that, let's call it 45 to about 100 MSP. But then our data migration of data, aggregation of data, and complicated data sets from acquisitions is an entire market as well for our large platform and MSPs. Like we deal with one, they buy 4 to 5 MSPs a year. They leverage us as a major strategy point from that the acquisition process from the data perspective. However, those benefits that large MSP benefits from, if one person is moving from, let's say, one PSA to another or something like that, they can leverage those benefits in their size as well. So there may be a catalyst where a market segment all of a sudden sees value in CrushBank because of something that they're doing in 2025. So,
Yeah.
But you're right. Our ideal customer is in that mid-size, growing, emerging MSP. Like hyper growth is massive, right? Because some employees may not like it, so they have to replace employees because they're growing and they want something more comfortable, or they may have to hire at a certain rate that they cannot sustain. And then we fill that. So there's a lot of, again, if I broke it down, I'm not going to get into it here, but we have 5 specific tables that we follow for what to drive into the metric that an MSP is looking for success, and how do we lean in on it from our customer success department and our dedicated account management to ensure that we're meeting those, and then monitoring and reporting back on ROI.
Well, and I hadn't thought of it, but I really like that use case of M&A where you're trying to merge or migrate several MSPs a year, because there's so much information that's out there, but it's in disparate systems. If you can pull it all together and aggregate it and then, get everybody on the same page, that seems very powerful to me. So, Dave, if people are interested in getting a demo of CrushBank or finding out more, how do they reach out?
So they could go to crushbank.com. They can book a demo right on the website. If anyone wants to reach out to me, I mean, my email is dpoole with an E at crushbank.com. I would not be the one doing the demo, but I'm happy to discuss and make sure I pull in the right resource from sales to work with MSP on the demo. But the easiest way is to go to crushbank.com. You can view case studies, you can view videos, you can view data sheets, and book a demo right there on the website.
Awesome, Dave. Thanks so much for doing this today and introducing CrushBank to all things MSP.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. Great seeing you again.